The only reason we're doing that is so that we can put it online for parents who weren't able to make it tonight. That doesn't mean you don't have to come to future meetings. Please come. But we just thought we'd do that so everybody can kind of be up to speed. So, first of all, my name's Kevin, and I'm the new Student Ministries pastor at Shelter Rock. And I just want you to know, first of all, very excited to be here. And tonight I just want to kind of give you a little bit of our story, tell you a little bit about youth ministry, and kind of some philosophy of ministry stuff, answer some of your questions, fill you in on missions trip and retreat. I know those are two big things coming up. And then have you guys just ask some questions that maybe we could answer. So first of all, let me just introduce, this is my wife, Ayana, right in the back there. And we've been married for 16 and a half years. And it is 16 and a half, right? I'm doing good? I'm still keeping count like you told me? So we've been married 16 and a half years. We have a daughter who will be 15 in about 3 weeks. She's in 9th grade. And we have another daughter who's 11 and in 6th grade. So I think that's important for you to know, to let you know that I'm right there with you as a parent of teenagers and students. And so I feel your pain, you know, and I know what you're going through. And I'm going to share a little philosophy of ministry in a little bit. But family is really important to us. We love being together as a family. We know the demands that kids have. We have a musician. We have an athlete. So I know the demands that you face, and kids coming home and having 3-4 hours of homework every night, and all that stuff. And so we're going to talk about that. But we're really excited to be here. A little bit about us. My wife and I met in Bible college. We went to a small Bible college called Elam in upstate New York. And both of us showed up there because we really felt God had called us to ministry. Personally, my personal story is I'm a 4th generation pastor on my mom's side of the family, 3rd generation pastor on my dad's. And so people say, how'd you get in ministry? I said, I didn't really have a choice, but I did. But my grandparents are awesome, still a huge part of my life. I'm on the phone with my grandfathers and my father and mother every month, just talking to them, gleaning from them as much as I can. I just am blessed with a godly heritage. My Christian heritage goes back 7 generations. So that's a pretty, on my mom's side of the family. So I consider it such a blessing to be able to have that kind of a heritage. I know it's rare, but I also know that it's something that we have a chance to be a part of here tonight, is passing on a godly heritage to our kids. And so, you know, my testimony is really one of preservation. That's how I look at it. God preserved me from a lot of crap. I mean, I had my struggles and stuff, but I knew God since before I could walk. People say, you know, when do you get saved? And some people think it's really important to know the exact date and have it written in your Bible. I was concerned about that a number of years ago, and I said, Dad, when did I get saved? I know it was when I was really young. I don't even really remember. And his response was, Kevin, between 4 and about 6 years old, every time I grew up in a tradition where there was altar calls, every time there was an altar call, you went to the altar. So he says, I don't know which one stuck, but one of them did. So somewhere in that neighborhood, I got saved, and I think I did. And so I think I'm pretty good. But I've just never remembered a time where I wasn't aware of God. I wasn't aware of God having a plan for our lives. And since a young age, I always just had a heart for Him. I remember being in middle school, and my dad worked for Elam, the Bible college we went to. And every chance I get, I would sneak up and go into their chapels and stuff. And sometimes I get kicked out because I wasn't a student, but I was always just kind of like trying to sneak in because I wanted to learn, I wanted to grow. And so that was kind of my upbringing. And when I was 15, I went on a missions trip to Africa. And that's really the time when I felt God just really make it very clear to me that He had a call in my life to be in ministry. And there was really no turning back from there. My wife's story is very different. She grew up in Mexico City. Her parents, a lot of trauma in her childhood. There was abuse going on. And there was all kinds of trauma and different things happening. And her parents were on the brink of a divorce. Her family story could be a Hollywood movie. Her dad was a federale, got in trouble, was on the run, had disguises, fake mustaches, glasses, changed his name, the whole deal. It's like Born Identity or something. It's crazy when you hear it. Her parents were on the brink of a divorce, alcoholism, all kinds of witchcraft things happening. It was just crazy. And in that season of life, God sent some missionaries into their lives in some miraculous way. They connected with some American missionaries. They received Christ as a family. Her parents got reconciled and did a 180. All of her brothers and sisters serving the Lord, her parents. And so it's two very different stories. And no two stories in this room are exactly alike. But the one thing we have in common is God has gotten a hold of us somehow. And so that's kind of just a short version of our story, a very short version. But we were on Long Island for 6 years, working at Smithtown Gospel Tabernacle out east, and just had a great number of years there. And after about 6 years, we just felt the waters of change stirring in our hearts. And we had always gone to California on vacation. Loved California, beautiful. And so when we were kind of feeling that, I was talking to some friends out there saying, hey, you know, if anything opens up, and something did open up, we got a job at a big church in Palm Desert area, about 5,000 people. And I had the opportunity to go and be a middle school pastor there and continue loving on kids. And it was just slamming. We had a big youth ministry, kids coming to Christ. I baptized like 60 kids last year. And I don't say that for the sake of numbers. I say that to say it was really neat to be a part of something where kids were just getting saved and baptized and growing. And, but yet on the inside we kind of felt homesick in a sense. There was something, you ever know these people who got out of New York and then they come back a year or two later and you're like, you escaped, why are you coming back? You know? I think of that movie Shawshank Redemption where the old man gets out of prison, he doesn't know what to do, he's got to go, you know. But we just felt, you know, God has, it takes a unique wiring to be a youth worker in New York, to live in New York, period. And then to be able to minister on Long Island and New York. And so there was just something in us that we just felt, man, you know, we love it here, we love the church, love the climate, it's great, but our hearts ached for New York. And so we were just kind of praying that through and just trying to continue moving forward. And we ended up talking to Greg and Jack about 6 or 7 months ago and said, hey, Greg said, I'm moving over into discipleship. I know you miss New York. Would you be interested in talking to some people about my job? And I have known Jack for a lot of years. He was my best friend here on Long Island. And so he called and said, I think you'd be a good fit here too. Jerry I've known for a lot of years, so all these guys were calling. And long story short, we ended up doing a 3,000-mile U-turn and coming home. But we couldn't be happier to be back. I have friends, and it's 85 right now and beautiful, and they keep teasing us. Don't you miss the weather? I said, sure, but I don't miss the lack of culture. So New York has the culture, man. This is where it's at. I miss 9 o'clock going out and getting whatever I want to eat, any kind of food you want. There it's like, let's go out to eat, what's open? Walmart. You know it's bad when Costco is the best pizza you can find. That's when you know it's time to go home, all right? So that's a little bit about us. The other little piece, we've been in full-time youth ministry for 12 years. Just have worked I've worked in small churches like 200 people. I've worked in that large church, 5,000 people. Smithtown about 2,500. So we've kind of been in another church of about 700. So we've been in different situations and actually worked at one church that had a multi-campus expressions. Wasn't too involved with that personally, but we're just glad to be here. So that's our story. Let me just start by giving you just a few pieces of our philosophy of ministry. In other words, things that kind of guide my thinking into our approach of how we look at students and how we function and how we plan and all that stuff. These are just different pieces of the puzzle that inform us and help us. The first thing is, believe very strongly, and I mentioned this already, family first is really important to us. God didn't design the church first. He designed the family first. And Deuteronomy chapter 6 makes it clear that God's intention is for the family to be the conduit through which kids are raised in God. The Hebrew command, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. And he commands families, teach these things to your children. When you sit, when you walk. I like to think when you're sitting around the home, when you wake up in the morning, when you're driving in the car, when you go to bed at night. That's the kind of ongoing conversation God wants us to be having in our homes. And so first and foremost, God created the family to be the place through which kids discover God. We know there are families that are broken, families that are flawed. None of us are perfect. But we need to always remember that's the place. God didn't want us to send our kids to church to get raised and you guys take care of them and we'll go out on date nights all the time, right? That'd be awesome. But God wants us, and so we have that huge responsibility as families. So I look at youth ministry and say youth ministry is designed to come. Youth ministry, by the way, is an invention in the last 100 years, okay? Less than that even. And really it was identified that, hey, we need some supplemental work with kids and some ways that we can help. And so I look at youth ministry, we're here to partner with you. And we know that there are kids who have parents and families that aren't about God. And in that place we step in a little bit more. And we have to step in and be spiritual parents to kids and stuff. But ideally, in the perfect scenario, that we want to come alongside you. Say, we're here to help you and supplement and reinforce the things that you ought to be teaching your kids at home. So as a guiding principle, that's something that we look at. Related to that is when we're doing the calendar, for instance, we plan stuff and we want to do a lot of cool things with kids. We want to give them transformational experiences. But, you know, it's easy for us, and I love stuff like that, but, you know, I'm very conscious of family when we're planning things out. And it's not always easy. It's not always something that we can avoid, but we do our best to not have your kids out of the house 5 nights a week. We want them at home having dinner with you. We want that happening. So just know, you know, some weeks, and there are seasons, and there are rhythms and when we get busier and sometimes when we're not. But just know from me and from us that we're always thinking about you. For instance, you know, we're thinking about small groups in the middle of the week and stuff. I'm thinking constantly, okay, if I got a middle school and a high school, am I making somebody drive all the way over here to drop their high school over, all the way to drop the middle school kid over, and then go home and then go all the way back and over, and they spend 4 hours running around, okay? Again, we're going to do our best to avoid those kind of situations for you. Again, we're not going to try and have you kids out 4 or 5 nights a week. You know, 2, 3 nights is max. I mean, as much as possible. Again, there may be special occasions where we're doing a missions trip and there's some additional things like that. But just know from us, we're constantly thinking about you as families and the demands we're asking of you in terms of having your kids involved. So we want to be family friendly. We believe in kids. I hear all the time, you know, the kids are important because of the church of tomorrow. True. But I want to just say, I believe kids are the church of today. How many of you have ever seen a kid who set an example for you and challenged you? I see it all the time. Kids are challenging me all the time. And so I look at kids and say, I don't have to wait till they're 25 to make a difference. I don't have to wait till they're 25 to be involved in the local church. I want to make a difference now. You know, Paul told Timothy, one of the famous verses for kids in youth ministry is, Paul told Timothy, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example for believers in speech, life, love, faith, and purity. So when we're working with kids, we're not looking at them like, hey, let's babysit kids and keep them off drugs and keep them busy, okay? That's so far below my standards for youth ministry. I want to raise the bar, and I want kids doing great things and setting an example for the rest of the church to say, hey, you know, these kids are going on mission trips. Let's go on a mission trip as a family. You know, they're going out and serving the poor. Let's go out and do this with our family, and let's do this as a small group. And so I really believe in kids. I've had 6th and 7th graders preaching before. Okay, I love it. Just last year I was working with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in California, and I worked with 8 kids all year, mentoring them. And at the end of the school year, I said, guys, this is Student Leader Sunday coming up in about a month. You guys, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, 8 of you, you are going to run our Sunday morning service, both services, from top to bottom. You're going to plan it. You're going to welcome kids. You're going to do check-in. You're going to set up. You're going to tear down. You're going to run the game. You're going to do the announcements. You're going to preach. You're going to lead worship. You're going to have an all-student band. And they did it, and it was awesome. And we have 170 middle school kids at our church, right? That's a lot on the line to let a bunch of little kids run your service. We met with them. We coached them. We mentored them. One of the best Sundays of my life. It was so awesome seeing little 6th graders up there grabbing their peers and running a game, and seeing my daughter was one of the kids leading worship, and seeing these kids get up and 4 of them giving a 5-minute message each. And I loved it, you know, and it was so cool. And I just look and say, you know, is it as polished as we could do it? No, but they got their hands dirty and they got a taste of what, they can make a difference. So we believe in kids. We're grace-based. We know kids are going to screw up, and just like we all do. We know that that's going to happen. We want to be there to welcome them and love them when they make mistakes and coach them through those things. I believe that relationships are the key to successful ministry. Spending time. Sometimes it's just hanging out. We're also purpose-driven. So whenever we're doing things, know that in my mind I'm saying, what is God's purpose that we're fulfilling? If you're familiar with the purpose-driven life, worship, evangelism, fellowship, discipleship, and ministry. We're saying all the time, what purpose are we fulfilling? We're not just here to babysit kids and keep them busy and that. We're intentional about saying, okay, this event, we want this to be evangelistic. We want kids to invite their friends to it. This event is about outreach. This is about reaching out and ministering to people. This event, we're focusing on Jesus in a special way. We're worshiping. This is designed for fellowship. We're just going to get together for the Super Bowl, and we're going to, we're not going to preach at kids. We're just going to hang out and watch football. That's fellowship, and we're going to have God in our midst, and it's going to be great. But we're always asking the deeper questions of why we're doing what we're doing. I believe very strongly in experiential ministry as well. We want our kids to get their hands dirty. I could talk to kids all day long about the poverty around the world. We could talk to you all day long about poverty in the world. When you go and see it yourself, it takes on a whole new meaning. And people say, well, why do you, all these kids raising $30,000 to go on a missions trip this summer for your team. Couldn't we just spend all that money and build 20 wells? Sure, But I look and say, you know what? I just got 30 kids with a lifelong vision that God wants to use them for life. And they're going to always want to be a part of something like that. Not just going on trips. This is on vacations, okay? I know one of the kids was really funny. I said, hey, we're going to go on a mission trip. He said, I want to go to Africa because I want to get a spear. That's great, man. But that's not why we're going to Africa. Okay? We'll have a day to go souvenir shopping. But we're not thinking of tourism vacation areas and then choosing and saying, oh, we'll go start there. Okay? We're gonna go where God wants us to go, and you'll get your souvenirs. But that's the bonus. Okay, that's not the focus. And so when we get kids out there, and I've led over 20 youth missions trips, and I love it. I love just seeing them rise up and do dramas and work on things. And so we'll talk more about our upcoming one soon. But like we did the other night, we took kids out to La Jornada, and we just packaged food. Get their hands dirty with the gospel and realize God wants to infect every area of our life. And so I love that. The last thing I'll say is this, or two things. One is patience is really important. We have a long view of what we're doing. To me, you can have kids one week and they're locked in with you and everything's great and you're like, they got it. And then the next week they come in and they're all over the map and you're like, I'm pulling my hair out like, are you the same kids that were here last week? This is so different. And just thinking, those moments are very frustrating as a youth worker, as a parent, right? Your kids are doing great, and then boom, it's like, what happened? My grandfather says, my daughter just turned 15 and she's in that phase of life where all the boys just all of a sudden, boys started appearing and he says, yeah, something happens. He said, the hormones turn on and the brains turn off, And says, and so you get to these things and you're just frustrated and like, did we make any progress? And sometimes it's two forward and one back. I have a long view, okay? I'm not here to entertain kids through 6th, 7th, 8th, 10th, 12th grade, okay? To me, the test of our youth ministry isn't what a kid looks like today or tomorrow or even in 6 months or even in a year. To me, and I haven't even been around long enough to see this, I want to know what kids look like in 20 years and in 30 years. Do they have godly marriages? Are they raising their kids for Jesus? Are they involved in their local church? Are they reaching people for Jesus? And again, there's some things I'll never know. So I'm not quick to say whether we were successful or not. We're just sowing seeds and we're doing things and planting for a big harvest, a lifelong harvest. We want roots to go down deep, and that takes time. And the last thing is this. I believe in a philosophy of ministry I call pray hard and play hard. When it's time to have fun, I'm the sweatiest guy on that basketball court. If anybody's been here looking out the windows, I'm the fat guy with the sweat. That's me, okay? And he comes out and looks like he just came out of the shower room. I play hard. I have fun. I mess around. I'm messing with the guys. But when it's time to get serious with God and to have a worship time or a small group and discussion, let's be serious about that too. And I want kids to realize that's not like a dichotomy. That's a reality, that we can do both, and it's okay. One thing I forgot to mention, I'll say this. I believe in teen ministry, it's an acronym I have called Teen Empowerment Adult Mentoring. Youth leaders, to me, volunteers, are the most crucial piece of youth work. If I really love your kids, I'm going to do my best to get as many people that I think, adults that could be a godly, positive influence on them into their life as I can. I'm always trying to grow our youth ministry team so that we can have more people. Because I love the kids that are here and your kids are here. I'm not satisfied with just, hey, let's just have a few kids and have like a little God club. This whole thing exists so we can reach out and get kids who don't know Jesus connected. And so we want to constantly be doing it. And if we're doing that and we're focused on healthy, we're going to be as big. I'm not worried about the numbers. God will take care of that. But I want to just love kids and say, if you bring your friends, we're going to make sure they're loved on and they're cared for. And we're going to need lots of adults that are about that. And so we want to make sure that we've got that. So speaking of leadership, I'm sure that I'm preaching to the choir a little bit here, but we're intentional about training our volunteers. I just had a meeting with them last week and just started sharing some hard things with them. And I know Pastor Greg did a great job meeting with the volunteers before, constantly sharpening them and training them so that they can be more effective in helping your kids. And our job isn't to point them to ourselves. It's to point them through ourselves to Jesus. And constantly, Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. That's the kind of adults I want that can say, listen, let's talk and let me keep pointing you to Jesus. And so all of our volunteers are trained. We're working on building our little community of youth leaders so that we can really model for your kids authentic community and what it means to love Jesus and work together. And also the safety of your kids. Doing criminal background checks on all our leaders and making sure that we're giving your kids the very best. Okay? Our kids aren't leftovers. They don't get our leftovers. I think kids get the best. Okay? So when we're talking about youth leaders, we interview them, we talk to them, and you don't have to be 25 years old with a ton of energy to be a youth worker. Okay? I had a 92-year-old youth worker. She's still alive, and I love her. Granny Franny, I just called her the other day. She was awesome. She came in, 1 week she had both her teeth in, 1 week she had the top, 1 week she only had the bottom, 1 week she didn't have any of them. But Granny always had her cane, and she was always ready to smack the kid in the butt if he was sneaking out of the service and tell him to get back in there. She just loved kids, and I love Granny Franny, and I still look at that. So I want diversity on our team because it takes different people to love different kinds of kids, and so I just say that. All right, let me jump into some calendar stuff, and then I want to give you guys some time for questions. Our spring calendars are coming soon. I'm just trying to finalize a couple of things, and then we'll get those printed up into you. My goal is before the turn of the year, you're going to have the next 6 months down on paper so that you know what's happening and that. I know Rock has been a little hit or miss sometimes just because of the facility and stuff. I met with them just this past week, Jerry and I, and said, listen, we really want parents to know Rock's happening every week, okay? How many of you guys came here 2 weeks ago and there's nobody here? Anybody? Okay, a couple of you. And so it was out there and it wasn't happening, but it wasn't real clear, and so people were showing up, and I'm glad you came. Thank you for doing that. And thanks for coming back, even though we didn't have it. But we don't want you to be guessing. And so my goal is to say we're meeting every single week unless you hear otherwise. And when we're not meeting, you'll hear about it. And so we just got the calendar, and I think there's only like 2 Sundays in the whole spring that we're not going to meet, and we'll make that real clear for you. So those calendars will be out soon. Big picture philosophy. I like to have a large group gathering. In the New Testament, they met in the temple courts, and they met from house to house. So there's big group and small group. So that's kind of my guiding way we think about things. So I think, okay, Sunday night is our big group gathering, the big building, everybody comes. My goal on Sunday night, and as we move forward, I want to really hone this, is to say to you, to encourage your kids, this is a night to invite your unchurched friends. It'll be fun. It'll be good music. The message will be understandable. Even if they don't know God, we're going to try and make it as understandable as we can. We want this to be like the gateway, okay? Everybody should feel comfortable bringing an unchurched person to church. And this is the venue we want that to be. So, big group, bring them, and we're going to have a big mix. And we're going to have unchurched kids here, okay? So again, I understand some kid might curse at you, okay? I can't expect a non-Christian kid to act like he knows God, right? But we're going to love them, we'll work with them and stuff. But let's just say that Sunday night is the night, and we want your help on this. Encourage your kids. Hey, the kids on your lacrosse team, the kids in your school, the kids on your bus, and be inviting them to church. We want them to be inviters, okay? And then we want to have small groups. Right now we've got the 2 Delta groups. We're working to expand that. We're going to start simply and slow to make sure we do it right. I'm hoping in the spring we can add, just for now, a junior high Delta in each of the locations. So that we can, and it'll be on the same night, and we're trying to make it as close to the other location as possible if your kids are involved. So if you got a middle schooler and a high schooler, you're not, again, you could just go within a mile or 2 and you're right there. But we want to start there, and then our goal is probably in the next year to be able to do some more of these in small groups. So Delta was originally designed to be kind of student leadership oriented, but we realized, listen, there are kids who aren't really interested in maybe small groups. So Delta was originally designed to be kind of student leadership oriented, but we realized, listen, there are kids who aren't really interested maybe in being student leaders, but they want to see their friends midweek, and we have a chance to disciple them a little bit. We want to create a midweek connection point that is also discipleship oriented. So that's where we're going to study the Bible. We're going to do some of that. And then I'm going to take, in the next 6 months and just try kind of identify some of the kids that are really rising up, even within small group and what we're doing, and say, hey, you're already kind of being a leader. Could we meet once or twice a month as a student leader group and do some stronger discipleship stuff or some stuff to push you as a leader, just to distinguish that a little bit. So that's kind of the big thing. And then what we want to do is kind of mix in fun events and outreach events. So we've got fun events that are fellowship oriented. We'll go bowling, we'll do an all-nighter and some of that stuff. Also, hey, let's go out and serve. Let's be involved in our community. And so as we're planning, just know we're juggling all these things: junior high, senior high, outreach, fun stuff, big group, small group. Okay, we're trying to plan all that out. So that's kind of where we're at. A couple things for you. I would challenge you to encourage your kids to be involved. And you're here tonight. Your kids are probably already involved. Talk to other parents whose kids maybe aren't, and say, hey, let's get our kids involved in this. And here's what I would say. I know you're busy. I know I'm busy. I know our kids are busy. There's a lot going on. There's demands at school. There's sports, all that stuff. You will have conflicts. Let's just call it, right? You're going to have conflicts. But, what I've found is sometimes parents have come to me in the past and said, hey, I really want my kid involved in stuff. And you kind of create stuff because their kid wants to do this, and there's some great ideas, and you create it, and then their kids don't come, and you're like, oh, well, they had this and that and that and this and that, and they just have all these competing things. So my challenge to you is this. I know we're all busy, but my goal is to help kids say, Jesus is a priority in my life. Right? School's a priority, sports are a priority, after school stuff, music's a priority, and what happens is we have all this competition. I want to be the voice tonight and say, guys, let's help our kids get a vision that God is the center of my life. And sometimes, a lot of times, it means sacrifice, right? Sometimes we don't get involved in certain things that we really want to be involved with. And it's a sacrifice, it's a cost. But my question is, what's going to change the world? What's going to change the world? And then look at our lives and say, are the things I'm instilling in my kids the things that are going to change the world? I know education is important, but I got to tell you, my conviction is education is huge and it makes a big difference in the world. It's not going to change the world. The thing that's going to change the world is Jesus. And it's Jesus in and through people. And it's kids having a passion for Jesus. And as much as I love education, and I would love my kid to go to Harvard or Yale and make a lot of money so they can make a difference in the world, I realize if I can get my kid to have an encounter with Jesus, I don't care, it's great. But if my kid can make Jesus said, seek me first, and all that other stuff will get taken care of. And I know all the demands out there, and I want my kid to play college sports. And so I have a daughter, and in 6 months she went from never throwing a ball, never even swinging a bat, to hitting 3 home runs, batting .460 in her first year playing, making the all-star team, and getting invited to play travel ball. I was a very proud dad. And I want to see my daughter do well. But I know when she got invited to play on that travel team, they said, the coach was being very gracious, and he said, hey, it's going to be great, we're going to really be good, and your kid will only have to be gone 3 weekends a month. You get 1 weekend off a month, he said. And I wanted my daughter to play so bad. And I thought it was such an honor he asked her. And I had to tell him, can't do it. I'm not going to have my kid and my family broken apart every weekend, 3 weekends a month. When we're saying Jesus is number one, and he asked us to give him a day every week to focus on. And I had to sacrifice it. And she's okay. Okay, I'm not, but. And so, you know, when we ask your kids to come to youth group every week, and you know, it means things. It says, hey, get your homework done Friday so you can be involved in youth group on Sunday. It means Saturday, instead of watching cartoons, it's like, get your homework done so you can go to youth group. And pushing them a little bit, okay? And they may not like you for it, but I'm saying, big picture, think that it's important. Going on missions trips and going to retreats. I know there's a financial thing involved. I know that there's sacrifice. I know we got to do fundraisers and all that. Make it a priority and say, you know what, I want my kid to have an encounter with Jesus. And our hope is not in these events, okay? I don't want to communicate that this is all that's happening. But I'm saying, as you look at your calendar and stuff, and we'll do our best to get it to you ahead of time so you can plan and all that, just figure out ways so they can be involved and maximize the opportunities we're trying to provide to help you as you're raising your kids for Jesus. And so, again, just challenge your kids to come, bring their friends, be involved, and understand it's going to be a challenge sometimes, but I think it's worth it. All right. Okay, let me jump to our retreat and the missions trip, and then I'll open the floor for questions. Our retreat is coming up at January 25 through 27. We have an early bird special going on right now through the end of 2011. It's $149. After that, it's $10 more, so it's not a huge savings, sorry. But at least it's $10 that you can give them for candy, so they'll love you. But we want to put that retreat on. Now, I know that the retreat is kind of like this time when our kids get together and they have a good time. I've already started planting seeds among some of the kids and our leaders. I have a vision and a heart for all of this Long Island. That's one of the things I love about Shelter Rock, okay? It's not just, hey, let's build our little church. We want to plant churches. We want to reach different communities and stuff. And one of the things I loved at Smithtown is I ran a retreat for 6 years. And we ran it. We put it all together. It was awesome. And we had 15 churches that would come with us every single year. We took over Tuscarora. We had like 500-600 kids. And the energy in that event every year was awesome. Okay? Now, I know there's pros when you just have your kids come together and you can have inside jokes and you can have skit night. You can do all these things and kids laugh and stuff. And I know the dynamics change a little bit when you open the door for other churches to come. But I have a value to say we want to be kingdom builders. And I want to be a leader as Shelter Rock and as our youth ministry to say we want to build bridges to the greater community of faith here. So this year we're running it ourselves. Next year I've already kind of been talking a little bit and saying, is there a way that we can do something like that and invite a bunch of churches to come with us and help our kids get to know other Christians on the island and other youth groups? And it's a really fun thing. I know there'll be like some growing pains and getting adjusted, but it is so awesome. So I just wanted to throw that out there so that you'll know in a year that some of the dynamics of the retreat will change a little bit, but that's kind of the big picture reason why. Oh, I thought that was my daughter. The retreat's coming, and the other thing is I know our kids like generally do the music and stuff like that. We're bringing in a band this year, and that's not in any way to belittle our kids or say that anything about our kids. My hope for the retreat is it's a time when our kids can receive and grow, you know, and for our musicians to not feel the pressure of I gotta really play gig this weekend and stuff. They can sit back, and also in that there's a mentoring moment for them to see some experienced worship leaders and a worship band that has some excellence and be able to sit under them. And we're already planning a time for our worship team to sit down with these guys and ask them questions and let them inspire them and help them grow as worship leaders. I love that about our retreats. We would bring in some big bands, and our worship team would just be so inspired to go home and work harder on their craft, and not just the skill part of it, but they saw people that were adults that were passionate for Jesus, that were out, you know, living by faith and traveling and hoping that they could find a place to lead worship because they were madly in love with Jesus, and I want our kids to see that. Same thing with our speakers. I'm sorry, you kids are going to hear me speak this year. Sorry. I called a couple, but both the guys I called were having babies about, not the guys, their wives. Actually, within weeks, Craig Muller was one of them. we brought in some big name speakers to our retreats before, and again, same kind of thing. You know, they're going to hear from me a lot. And by the way, I do want to raise up some of our volunteers to speak as well. I want your kids hearing from lots of different voices and styles. And again, I want to equip our team and help them grow in their gifts as well. But so we'll be bringing guest speakers in and guest bands and stuff. But that's, again, just another aspect of kind of mentoring our kids and giving them a chance to rest and receive. All right. So in your brochures, and again, this is maybe preaching to the choir a little bit, we want this to be a special encounter with God, this retreat. And I look and say there's a certain piece of a retreat that there is sacrifice, there's a disconnect from normalcy, so that we can tune into God a little bit. You know, we get this static in our lives of all this stuff that's happening all the time. Those retreats are times when we can do some things that cause us to unplug from all the noise and focus on God. So that's kind of the big picture thing to say that drives some of our policies on a retreat. One of those things is not to bring electronics on a retreat. Because, see, we want kids to build relationships. We want them to hear from God. And, you know, kids, everything's wireless and they're all just kind of in their own world. And if we let them bring all that stuff, you know what they do on the bus? They just sit here like this. They're not talking to the kid next to them. And then, you know, at the retreat, instead of building relationships or sitting in a message listening, they're texting and they're on the phone during free time. They're not maximizing the experience. And so we say, like, no cell phones on these retreats. Nothing wrong with cell phones. We love our cell phones. And just so you know, our leaders will have cell phones, so you have emergency contacts. You know, if there's something that happens, you know, we can make arrangements for that. But that unplugging is so important so that there's not the distractions, there's not the drama, by the way. You know, the texting world. If we can give kids 2 days without all the drama from the cell phones, you know, and say, you know what, I really paid attention to the message. I really got to talk about things. And they do survive, by the way. Like I said, I've led 20 missions trips, 20 youth mission trips. Kids have never brought cell phones, never brought iPods. And 7, 8 days, they've made it. In fact, you know what we hear about 2 days in, 3 days in? This is really nice, not having my cell phone and not having stuff. I didn't think I could do it, but it's awesome. And you see the uniqueness of those experiences. And I think a part of it is because we help them disconnect a little bit. And you know, and I think too, as parents, it's hard for us too to let go of our kids a little bit, right? Because we want to know what's going on. I blog, like when we're on a missions trip, we post blogs, we Twitter, we do all those kind of things to keep you informed back here and do that. But teaching our kids to really depend on Jesus. And one of the things, like on a missions trip, for instance, I'm jumping into missions a little bit, there's always challenges on a missions trip. Things never go as planned. I give kids the schedule and say, look at it, now throw it away, because it's not going to happen. I guarantee it. You know? And they have challenges, and they have interpersonal challenges within the team and stuff. And here's what I found. If you give them their phone or something, you know what they'll do? They won't call home and tell you how awesome the trip's going and all the great ministry that's happening. You know what they're going to do? They're going to call and complain about the food. You know, they're going to say, well, there was bugs in our room, and I'm very uncomfortable. And you know what I've seen? If you take that away, take that option off the table, they make it. They work it through, and they make it home, and they have great stories. And we want kids to realize you can make it. Okay? So that's my little spiel on that. Again, when you see the brochure retreat, no pranks and stuff, because we don't want to ruin the retreat for somebody else. I'm all for having fun. There's funny pranks, I know. But you know that they escalate, and then before you know it, innocence turns into craziness. Somebody gets hurt, somebody's offended, somebody's crying, really. And we just don't want that drama. So we want to eliminate that as well. So as you're getting your kids ready for the retreat, make sure that you're going through the day. No. There is a vetting issue, Pastor Greg may be aware of, that some of the dorms that we use at this retreat center this year, depending on where your kids stay, they may need to bring bedding. Once we do the room assignments, we will contact you if you do need to bring bedding and say, make sure your kids bring bedding. Other than that, the other dorm apparently does. Or they can rent it. Is that right? Okay.
That's senior high.
Yeah, right. Senior high. Sorry, not the junior high retreat. Okay. Missions trip. Last thing, and then I'm going to open the floor for you guys to ask your questions. This is what you're all here for, right? I made you suffer through everything else. The senior high missions trip will be July 1 through 8. I know it's over 4th of July, but it's fun to sing in the other country. We're going to Peru. So that's where we're going. And we are going to do, we're working with a friend of ours who's been down there for about 15 years. Great guy. And we're still working out the dynamics of the trip. I'll say this, here's what we're going to do. Throw it out because we're not going to do it. But probably a construction thing. We'll definitely have some sort of a physical labor piece to it. Usually there's children's ministry involved. We may do some dramas and testimonies and go into churches and stuff like that. More of that will flesh out. I think the important thing, the big picture thing to help you guys with your planning is the dates and then the cost. The cost is going to be $1,550. Okay? Again, I know that's a lot of money, but pray with your kid. Teach your kid the steps of faith. Let's pray and ask God if He wants you to go. Okay? We're not going just because our friends are going. Okay? We're going because God wants us. God is calling us to go. So use this as an opportunity to pray with your kids and say, does God really want you to go on this trip? Why do you want to go? Have that conversation. Now, this is always important with missions trips. Understand the commitment is not July 1 through 8. Okay? We want to take and give our very best, which requires preparation. It requires unity on the part of our team. So we're going to have times when we get together for team meetings, for unity, for training. We'll probably have the kids work through how to share their testimony. We may put together some dramas based on whatever is needed. Some of that stuff. So the commitment, just so you know, and again, you'll have all the exact dates when the calendar comes out here in the next couple of weeks, is really April through July. And we're going to have, probably bi-weekly kind of meetings or trainings so that we can be together, so that when we go there, we're lock and step and we're hitting on all 8 cylinders so we can give our very best. I'll give you more details on those training dates as they approach. So before you sign up, what we'll do is we'll give you an application. On there will also be the dates of the trainings. And what I found works best is I'm going to give you the training dates. And I'm going to ask you to go through and check your calendar and say, hey, we already had a family vacation planned this weekend. I'm going to ask you to note those things. And then when you hand in the application, if there's one here or something, it's not going to be a big deal. But if you're saying, hey, I'm going to miss 5 out of 8 trainings, then we need to sit down and just decide, hey, is this really something that you need to be a part of? Because we want to say to the rest of the team, we value this, and they're going to be busting their butts to train. We don't want to have some kid who just comes to one thing and gets to go on a trip. Okay, it's the sacrifice piece. And so we'll give you an opportunity to chime in on those dates as well. We will do fundraisers. Everybody will fundraise. We want kids to learn this march of faith. I would suggest to you, if you have the means to pay for your kid's whole trip and you could just write a check, please don't. You may help them, but teach them what it means to work and to ask for help, and that there's a humility piece to that, and it also gives other people the chance to be a part of the trip when they write a check, and then they're a part of the trip and they're praying for it to be successful too, right? And so just figure out ways that you can help your kids say, hey, we're going to help you, but we also want you to write fundraising letter. Let grandma and grandpa know what you're doing. Ask your aunt and uncles and do fundraising and that kind of thing. Any additional monies raised by an individual go towards the team and the trip, not towards individual accounts. And I know that's kind of a gray thing, maybe from the past and stuff, but technically that money needs to go towards that trip. That's what it's being put towards. And so we want to honor that. And it also would help other kids who maybe fell a little short. The other thing I'll say is this. If you want to be a leader in the youth group, but particularly on a missions trip, I want to challenge you to think through your motives why you want to go to. And this is really important, especially for parents, all of us. Our motive can't be because I want to go and watch my kid, okay? And I don't trust the other leader, so I'm going to go, okay? When we go on these things, we go for the team and with the team. In fact, I will actually not put your kid with you very intentionally, okay? Because they need to have that separation, but also let somebody else speak into their life. How many kids would not open up if mom and dad was their small group leader, That doesn't mean mom and dad can't be their small group leader, but we need to make sure that when we're in this, we're being fair to our kids and giving them the experience. And so I would just say, getting involved in youth ministry, your reason can't be so I can watch my kid. Okay? In fact, every time I do an event, I'm gonna do my best to separate you from your kid, okay? So that your kid can have a full experience. And so you've got to be in it because you want God to say, God, let me help some other kids. And it's great that you get to be with your kid and have a shared experience. Don't get me wrong. My kids go on stuff with us too. But even my wife and I, my wife is never my daughter's leader on anything. It's just let her have another leader she can open up with and be on. So if you want to be a leader on a trip, let's get together and talk and say, why do you want to go? Is there some sort of a skill you can bring? Or what do you want to bring to the team because of it? Okay, I've talked a lot. I've thrown a lot out there.
Just to clarify, Peru is senior high.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, two quickies. One, the junior high we're working on, and let me just throw this out. We're doing our best. Well, let me say this first. Over spring break, we're going to do a thing called Love Long Island. We know we have a lot of needs in our own backyard. Somebody may be saying, why are we going all the way down there when we got stuff right here? Okay, fair question. I always say the light that shines the farthest shines the brightest at home. So we don't just, I had this thing years ago. I said, we're known all over the world, but we're not known in our own town, Smithtown. That's a problem, right? So I actually got on the youth board in our town. We started getting our kids involved in our own town because it's fraudulent for us to say, yeah, Jesus wants to change your lives, but let's make sure we go to people who never know who we are. So we want to do that. So we are going to do some things over spring break. We're going to try and go down and do some cleanup or wherever we're at that point. And just find different ministries on Long Island and people that we can help. We are exploring the idea, and I'm just working on something, and I'll throw this out if you can help us, if you have contacts on the South Shore. We have an opportunity to have Group, which is a national youth organization. They are open. I've had conversations with them. They would love to come here and host and do a group work camp. They'll come, they'll take care of all the logistics, they'll have work sites, we'll go out and work at homes, we'll go out in teams. It's a camp that's open to people from all over. And as much as we could do it at our church maybe, we really want to be down on the South Shore closer to the action. So I've contacted some churches. If anybody knows school administrators, they said the schools are the best because they already have showers, kitchens, all that stuff. So we would love to be able to have a group work camp. And our kids could just pay and like go to camp and they go to work and they got chapels at night and all that. So we are looking at that for junior high and probably senior high as well. It would be kind of open. But we are, just know that we're thinking about here. If that doesn't work out, we have another possibility on deck ready to go. So I'll let you know about that once we finalize that. Okay, questions that you would have?
Do you have any dates for junior high stuff this summer or no?
For the summer, the missions trip possibility that we're looking at, the 2 weeks we're looking at is either July 15 or 22. So it would be in July, so I'd say if you plan in August stuff, you're going to be safe. But that's summer. We are planning some events in the spring just for junior high kids. So when you get your calendar, you'll see that. Yeah.
Peru, July 1 to 8.
1 to 8, right.
What's the weather in Peru at that time?
Good question.
It's the opposite of us. It's cold.
Yeah, could be. That's a great question.
Google it.
Yeah, Jerry? That's a good question. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be terribly cold, but and he is kind of on the coast. It's near the coast. It's in the city of Piura, Piura. So if you want to Google it tonight and just look, but when we get the team together, we'll have all those information so they know what to pack and all that stuff. So that's a great question. Yeah.
Is it with Mission Discovery?
No, we're just doing this one ourselves. Yeah.
Is there any way to like do a cost breakdown of how you came up with that number of 1550?
Yeah, based on I asked the guy down there kind of what airfare is running, and he said it's like right now he says it's kind of like $850, something like that. So they can figure that, and the lodging and the food and all those expenses. And he's held teams before, and that's pretty much the ballpark. So I broke it down with him a little bit, and I can give you a fuller breakdown. But yeah, we're not just making a number up for sure.
No, now you just said that you guys are running this just on your own.
Yeah.
There's no middleman.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And I've done both, by the way. We have worked with missions organizations that takes care of that. But this is the nice thing about doing it this way is you do take out the middleman and the overhead from that. Yeah. So that's our ballpark, and hopefully that wouldn't change. If anything, maybe come down. But go ahead. You had a question?
Yeah, I was just going to say the retreat you were speaking of was for senior high, and junior high had a retreat a couple months ago.
Correct.
So there's nothing else for junior high.
There'll be events in the spring. We got some fun activities and stuff for them, but not.
There's not like a winter retreat for them.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm wondering, I think that's a great program to Delta during midweek for kids to connect. I have high school kids.
Yeah.
Is there any thought or consideration of something on a weekend? I know I totally agree with you to keep to teach our kids to have, church as priority and certain activities. But because of busy schedules, a lot of times with sports and stuff, it's difficult. I'm wondering, do other parents feel the same, that there might be some benefit to either having like a Sunday morning Bible study right before service, or fellowship time right before fellowship? I mean, right before service or something like that.
Yeah, that's a
They
great
would
idea.
get more,
Yeah,
I
that's a
don't
great
know.
idea. I know the junior high is meeting right now on Sunday mornings.
Mhm.
That's something I'm open to. The thing I don't want to do, as I'm thinking, I don't want to duplicate like small group and say, okay, we're doing this over here and we're going to do it here too. It's just, but there is definitely validity to trying to figure something out. I've been chewing that over and talking with some of the guys about that possibility on Sunday mornings, because I know there's two sides of the argument. One, we want our kids in church with us as a family. My kid's really not, and then the other one, my kid's not connecting and they're just sitting in the hallway. I get it, okay? And so we're wrestling through that, and there is possibility, and I'm open to ideas. It requires the personnel to do it, and the facilities is a challenge, with the Sunday mornings too. And I know at one point we rented some space and stuff. It's in our mind. I would just have to say it's got to be unique enough that it's not just duplicating Wednesday nights, And also, again, yeah, I would say yes. In terms of the weekend too, I would say a lot of our additional fun activities and stuff will be Friday night, Saturday kind of things. So we are going to mix in some stuff like that. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I was a senior in high school, and I'm just wondering, when you think about the future,
Yes.
I'm sort of sad already to think this is the last missions trip. Are there any kind of plans to grab those kids that are now in college and either help them be leaders, or, when you were saying you don't have to wait till you're 25, I'm sort of wondering, is there that gap, that gap?
Yeah.
Can I just interject real quick? We are going to do an adult missions trip too. It's July 8th through the 15th. It's going to Belize. That is something that's kind of a family, college, adult. So kids who are graduating, that will be an option for them also. That Kevin and I will kind of work on and talk through for that older age group.
Yeah. But
But also Canvas. That's the Canvas trip. We have an active college ministry with Canvas that will pick up that.
Yeah. And that's a huge concern in the youth ministry world for the last number of years anyways, just to say, hey, we don't want to be losing kids after high school. How can we keep them connected and growing in their faith? And so I would say, I'm glad that we have something of a college ministry here in Kansas.